Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and I'd like to welcome you to the cheat sheet edition of our show. Just a quick rundown to catch up on some news and notes that have dropped, fill in the gaps for our pregame podcast, which is already aired, so a lot of good. Well, this is supplemental. If you want some of the more in-depth action, some of the more in-depth information, check out that episode that I posted yesterday. Got some keys to the game and things of that nature. Going to catch you up on some of the injury news and notes, and also where you can catch Sunday's game between 1 and 2 teams in equally tough divisions. Probably must wins in either category for the 1 and 2 Pittsburgh Steelers and the 1 and 2 New York Jets, who they're hosting at Acrisure Stadium. Yeah, formerly Heinz Field. We know, but the Steelers get a second home game in front of their faithful, and we're going to see how that ends up playing out. The big storyline, of course, heading into this one is another debuting quarterback, 2022 debut for full practice all week for New York Jets quarterback Zach Wilson. They're entering his second year in the National Football League, and last season, Zach Wilson, some ups and downs, as we've talked about. Even if Kenny Pickett were to get in, you expect him to take some lumps and then maybe rebound, and we'll see. I mean, is he going to continue on the pace that he had last year? Took 44 sacks in 13 games, 55.6% completion percentage, 9 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. Not really the best of years. So even despite the Jets, they had a hell of a draft, okay? And they're trying to improve this team, but they do have some injuries and news and things of note too. They are 1 and 2. They came back in a very unlikely game against the Cleveland Browns just a couple of weeks ago, and I should note that this is the 4th straight game for the Jets against an AFC North opponent. Like I said, must win, because the Steelers, they're in a division with the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Browns, who are all playing some quality football, and the Steelers, it doesn't necessarily look like they're doing as quite as good at this point. Maybe left a win or two on the table in the last 2 weeks against the Patriots and the Browns. And of course, the Patriots are in that AFC East that the AFC North is facing. And the Jets, they've got to be up against the Patriots and the Bills. They were both playoff teams last year, and the Dolphins, another formidable team. And you just never know how that's going to go. Now our thoughts and our prayers go out to Tua Tagovailoa. Seems like he really dodged a bullet, but man, head injuries, that's a little scary. But once again, Zach Wilson, the big name here as we look at the injury report, but Joe Flacco in his stead was one of 4 quarterbacks in the NFL through 3 games that had 900 plus passing yards, right? Just above a smidge, 901 actually, with 5 touchdown passes this season. Yes, both 900 passing yards and 5 touchdowns. I'm going to guess that Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are probably in that category as well, but maybe Zach Wilson, maybe he can avoid any type of disaster here. We got to see. Flacco went down 9 times thus far this season, despite the Jets having some issues with their own offensive tackles, 3 of them on injured reserve, including George Fant, Wayne Brown, and Mekhi Becton. It was rough. And they're trying to work through the offensive tackle deals. You know, they had Morgan Moses before that, who left in free agency. They're trying to turn this team around, and this might be the path for the Steelers, of course. Sacks leader Alex Highsmith, who I was incredibly standing for if you listened to the previous show, the pregame show, because if you saw it last night, and the AFC's Defensive Player of the Month, Melvin Ingram, and I couldn't figure this out. I couldn't wrap my head around it, and just to give you a little bit of an update on what Ingram was able to do in last night's Thursday night game, he had a tackle. Yes, that's it. That's it. That's all I got. No sacks, no half sacks, no pass deflection, forced fumbles, or fumble recovery, anything crazy like that. But yet, Alex Highsmith, who is superior in every facet of the game, he might be licking his chops against this front line for the Jets. But the Jets dodged some bullets, I think, if we take a look at the injury report, which for some odd, strange reason, the Steelers, even though they've already put the press release out for this, they hadn't updated this. So forgive me. This is what's on the screen at Steelers.com, but you'll see it updated later. Everyone that you see here, with the exception of Ahkello Witherspoon, was a full participant in practice. That would mean Presley Harvin, the third punter. They did bring in backup with Jordan Berry being signed this week to the practice squad. Minka Fitzpatrick, a little bit of a scare, maybe with a concussion they found post-game. And then Kevin Dotson and Larry Ogunjobi. So that leaves out Ahkello Witherspoon, who did not practice this week at all, and he's already been ruled out for Sunday. That could play into the Jets' favor, and Zach Wilson, of course, with his weapons, Corey Davis, and then again Garrett Wilson, the rookie, who's already been kind of lighting things on fire himself. Garrett Wilson had 6 catches for 60 yards last week, and he leads all rookies with 18 catches, and he's tied with Drake London of the Atlanta Falcons with 214 receiving yards. And I should say he's tied second, 214 receiving yards, but he's one of 2 rookies with Drake London with 50-plus receiving yards in each of the first 3 weeks. So Garrett Wilson's getting it done. If we take a look at the rest of the injury report here, Quincy Williams, one of the starting linebackers for the Jets, he has been ruled out as well, but it looks like everyone else on the injury report will be available. We've already mentioned Zach Wilson. Cornerback Brandon Eccles, who does play a role. He was limited. They do still have him as questionable, but he did get a full practice in on Friday. That's going to be somebody that they need in order to cover all of the Steelers' various wide receivers as well. And then there's John Franklin Myers, who's one of their edge rushers. He was limited early on in the week, but got 2 full practices in. So we'll see how that ends up working out, maybe in the Steelers' favor as well. Again, this game, it's one of those ones where you just don't know. It's any given Sunday, right? And as we're trying to figure out what is the Steelers' odds, I can never say anything's a gimme, and when you look down the rest of the schedule before the bye week, it doesn't get any easier with the Bills, with the Dolphins, with the Eagles, Tampa Bay Buccaneers come to town as well. So the Steelers get a home game, maybe the correct course. They're still giving the Jets 3.5 points, so they are the home favorite, and 41.5 is that over and under on this line. So what else can we see as far as what's going on? Stats wise, just taking a look at this, Robert Saleh, the coach Robert Saleh never faced the Steelers before, so 0-0 up against them. The Jets are currently averaging 17.3 points per game to the Steelers 18.0. So neither offense is really getting the job done. But again, does Zach Wilson spark a fire, or is it maybe Mike Tomlin might turn to his young quarterback? Can we see Kenny in the Jets? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. Passing wise, I'd mentioned Joe Flacco's numbers, but overall the offense for the Jets, 370 yards per game to the Steelers, 272.7. So they're actually, the Jets are almost gaining 100 yards on average. I know that's not each game. Just to put that kind of into perspective, the Jets, through their first few games, let me see, of offense, 380 yards, 402, and 328 total of offense is what they were able to put up. However, defensively, they've given up 274 to the Ravens, 405 to the Browns, and 330 to the Bengals. So there is a little bit of hope there that maybe the Steelers offense could get it going. I still don't know if Mike Tomlin, if he's going to be stubborn and not pull the trigger and make a change at quarterback. It'll be interesting to see if Mason Rudolph is also inactive for this game. That might tell you a little bit of, give you a little bit more of something to look at when it comes to some tail of the tape, and as to whether or not Mitchell Trubisky is going to stay in there and be the guy. So as we continue to look at some more storylines and stats throughout this particular game, their Jets leading receiver is Garrett Wilson, as aforementioned, with 214 points. The Jets have been giving up 27 points per game to the Steelers, 22. Steelers leading receiver is Deontay Johnson with 21 receptions for 196 yards. And Najee Harris is their leading rusher, only 128 yards on 40 carries thus far this season. Not be able to get the run game going. Najee says lay off the offensive line. He says it's all him. That's what he said just today. So the leading rusher for the New York Jets, not too much better, averaging 4.4 per carry, but they also have, besides Michael Carter, who's their leader, with 122 rushing yards. They also have Breece Hall, who is their rookie, and Breece Hall is also a receiving threat as well. So Breece Hall almost has as many yards. He's only 10 shy of Carter. He's averaging 5.3 per carry. He has 21 for 112. Neither of their backs, no one has scored a rushing touchdown, actually. Let me see. I'm going to see if Joe Flacco has, to be completely honest. Joe Flacco has not either. No rushing touchdowns yet for the New York Jets through 3 games. Receiving-wise, though, Breece Hall, he's caught 13 balls, as has Michael Carter. Hall has 101 yards and a receiving touchdown, while Carter has 74 yards. They do get the ball, a little bit of dumping off there. Tyler Conklin also had a pretty solid game just last week as well. He led the team with a career high in catches of 8 and receiving yards 84, and he's looking for his 3rd game in a row with 6+ catches. So they are finding ways to get the tight end the football. That's something that the Pittsburgh Steelers have not been able to do thus far this season. I know Pat Freiermuth gets a snag here or there or a touchdown, but not targeted really in that Thursday night game until the very end. So hopefully they could get Freiermuth involved in this game. Let's see what else. Sacks-wise, Quincy Williams for the Jets with 1.5. I mentioned Alex Highsmith. He's the league leader with 4.5 headed into week 4. Minka Fitzpatrick has 2 picks. The Steelers are +3 in the takeaway giveaway category, having taken away 6 and only given it away 3 times, whereas the Jets are a -4 with 3 takeaways but 7 giveaways. Not the sharpest football. Both kickers between Chris Boswell and Greg Zuerlein. Greg Zuerlein has missed a point after attempt. He's 6 of 7 field goal attempts, whereas Chris Boswell is 6 of 8. Of course, both misses from Chris Boswell, 50+ yard tries. So this game could come down to the specialists as well, as that was duly noted. And we're going to have to see if the Steelers could generate a little bit more field position here, or are they just going to leave it on the foot of Chris Boswell? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Deontay Johnson, he had 8 catches last week for 84 yards, and he had 8 receptions, 81 yards and a touchdown in the last meeting between these two teams. Of course, that is going back all the way to the 2019 season. That was a December 22nd game. Also a Mason Rudolph sighting there. If you remember, it started out with Duck Hodges got benched. Mason Rudolph came out, threw a touchdown pass, and broke his collarbone in the process and was done for the season. That one broke their back. That was a 16-10 loss. The last time they played on site was in 2016. It was October 9th, almost right around the same time. The Steelers won 31-13. For some reason, sounds like the Sammy Coates breakout game, if I remember that correctly. You remember that? And he dropped a couple of passes, Bumblebee jerseys and everything. The Steelers lead the all-time series 18-6, but the Jets have won 2 of the last 3. Where are you going to be able to check out this game? Well, first of all, let's talk about referee Brad Rogers. This is something we haven't talked about referees too much thus far on the Steel City Underground podcast, which is kind of unnatural, to be completely honest, through like the first month of football. This comes from Dale Lawley, of course, the Steelers beat writer since 1993, and he's been around everywhere. He now works with the Steelers on their website and with SNR, Steelers Nation Radio. And Dale Lawley put out here, when did he do this? This was yesterday, right? Brad Rogers' crew will be working the Steelers Jets this week. They have called 7 pass interference and 3 defensive holding penalties in 3 games. They have called the 3rd most penalties overall this season with 41 in 3 games. So if you're expecting a smooth ride, for those of us old enough to remember CDs and how they skip and skip over the music, this game's going to be kind of raggedy like that. The rest of you, the youngins out there, yins probably refer that as buffering on your Spotify and your Apple Music and all of your fan-dangled contraptions that you have. I'm going to start yelling at clouds before you know it, and Brian's going to appear out the corner of my screen. So, of course, this is a CBS game, so be sure to check this out. Of course, it'll be a very limited broadcast, actually. Just pretty much in your usual areas. Western Pennsylvania. It kind of gets up into parts of Eastern Pennsylvania, if you're not including the Philly area, and down into West Virginia, parts of Virginia there, Kentucky, but and a little part of the southeastern part of the state of Ohio. So everybody else in Ohio is getting like the Cleveland Browns, and I forgot who was in the red. There was another big game. instead on the CBS slate. So for once, you're not getting Ian Eagle. You're going to get Greg Gumbel with the play-by-play and Adam Archuleta with analysis. AJ Ross is your field reporter. Steelers Nation, or Steelers Radio Network, I should say. Bill Hillgrove with the play-by-play as usual. Craig Wolfley, Missy Matthews, and Max Starks will be working the sideline. For those of you who are watching KDKA TV, there's maybe a couple other local affiliates. Check out SteelCityUnderground.com on Saturday morning. We have all of this information posted. You could go and refer back to, maybe find some of the flagship stations or affiliates throughout. Oh, geez. I mean, you go out into even Maryland with some of the Steelers radio network there. So check that out if you can. If you got the Sirius XM satellite radio, the Sirius station will be on 108, XM in the app 233, and then if you're on the internet, that'll be 826. There are Jets feeds as well on 132, 391, and 824. And of course, like I said, maybe Paramount Plus and some other wacky ways that you can get around whatever with the game. Maybe you got somebody on their couch that's broadcasting it on Facebook Live. I don't necessarily advocate for any of that, as you may know. So, folks, there you have it. There's all of the kind of down and dirty details for this upcoming game. A 1 o'clock game on Sunday. I think that was about the only information I didn't put out there. I do hear there is a chance of rain. I hate giving the weather details, the weather forecast, but I may as well just pull it up real quick. Of course, you know, the hurricane that was just rolling through down in Florida might get a little bit I was waiting for some aftermath of that. It hasn't quite hit up north here, but taking a look at the daily forecast, there is a chance of rain, particularly on Saturday. And I do believe the Pitt Panthers are at Acrisure Stadium that day too. So it could make for some sloppy conditions, just something else to consider when you're trying to talk about advantages between teams. Let's face it, that's what it really comes down to. And looking forward, maybe hopefully for a Pittsburgh Steelers victory. I mean, it's going to be really, really, really sucky if the Steelers can't make it through and they're 1-3 after the first 4 games. It's not going to look too pretty with the, like I said, the onslaught of opponents that they got coming up with the next 4 before the bye week. So we're up against it. This has been the cheat sheet edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. A little more, I don't know. I feel a little drier than usual. You know what I mean? Maybe it's my voice. Maybe it's just that I'm tired on a Friday. Not a whole lot of injuries, not a whole lot of news and notes. Just the big one with Zach Wilson and again, Ahkello Witherspoon. So you have one guy making his debut and Ahkello missing his first game of the season. The Steelers otherwise are relatively healthy. I'm going to have to see what they do in front of that home crowd. And I have a feeling the Kenny and the Jets thing, and that's, that may be the chant Mike Tomlin might not be able to get out of his head. So, folks, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for joining us here on the Steel City Underground podcast. And if you'd like, check out all of the pregame coverage from the previous days and the postgame coverage. There's a lot of stuff talking about going ahead and looking forward. In fact, Monday's episode was a little bit more of our daily grind variety. It was more of a regular show. And by what I mean by that is, there wasn't a post game because of the Thursday game. That post game had already occurred. So a lot of quarterback talk there. You'll get a little bit more of a variety with Zach Flash Celedonia on that program as well. So until next time, as I always do to our fans out there, thanks for supporting Steel City Underground, no matter where you're viewing or listening. And until next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.